Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Archie Tech Experience. Today, I want to cover the Democratic debates that were held on January 12th on News Nation. Last time I covered the GOP debates. This week, I want to cover the Democratic debates. Now, Joe Biden is not debating. Up until just recently, I thought that Joe Biden was going to be the Democratic nominee completely uncontested until I saw Dean Phillips on the Breakfast Club. And not only did he mention that he was running against Joe Biden, but that Marianne Williamson was also running against Joe Biden. And I had no idea. So I did not watch these debates yet. I started to watch it today. And then like 2 minutes into it, I was like, you know what? Let me just do a live reaction to it with you guys. So let's just get straight into it. Let's see. Democratic debates.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this Democratic presidential.
And then, just like last week, I'm going to just skip around. We're not going to watch it straight through. Just skip around a little bit, see if we can catch some good stuff, some highlights.
Forum, a debate and discussion with three candidates that the DNC doesn't really want you to hear from. President Biden has been anointed the Democratic candidate. They clearly hope to avoid any serious challenge. The president's supporters even trying to keep these candidates off ballots. But we believe that should be your decision. You may like what they have to say, you may not, but that's what voting is supposed to be all about.
Right.
So joining me now is three-term Democratic Congressman Dean Phillips from Minnesota, author Marianne Williamson, who also ran for the Democratic presidential nomination in 2020, and Cenk Uygur, the founder and host of the Young Turks. We invited President Biden to join, and he did not even respond to our request. Now, remember, people like Cornel West and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., for example, are not here because they're running as independents. Here today are candidates challenging President Biden in the Democratic primary. Like any other debate, we will be giving them a serious...
Let's skip this and see if we could get straight into the good stuff, right?
Where the three of us agree is more significant than where we disagree. What we agree about is that the Democrats are sleepwalking to disaster in 2024. It's like watching a car crash in slow motion. This will be much more like 2016 than the race of 2020. And the Democratic elite are as blind now as they were in 2016 to what's going on in this country. And they think that they can just will themselves into the White House, and it doesn't work that way. There's a rumbling out there in this country, and it is not responding to what the Democrats are offering. And I think it would respond much more to what any of the three of us are offering.
Mr. Uygur, I know you're not worried about this issue either. No sitting president has lost the party's nomination to a primary challenger in modern U.S. history, right? And
who's this guy? Anybody know who? I think that's the guy from Young Turks. He's running for president too.
Unlike Congressman Phillips and Ms. Williamson, you're on a very limited number of ballots. You're not even mentioned in a lot of major polls. Realistically, lay out for me how you have a path to victory.
Right. So there's a lot of parts to this answer. First of all, strong primaries give you strong candidates. So back in 2016, the Republicans had the toughest primary anybody's ever seen, and they won. In 2020, the Democrats had 27 people in the race, and they won. So the more voices there are in the Democratic Party against Donald Trump and in favor of Democratic policies, the better the Democratic Party does.
He actually got a good point there. I never thought of that, but the more voices you have behind you, and then I guess all those people eventually bring all of their voters to that one person. I guess that's the theory.
So every one of us is helping the Democratic Party become stronger. If Joe Biden was here, let's be honest, about 10 times as many people would watch, and 10 times as many people would hear Democratic policies, Democratic arguments, and arguments against Trump. For me personally, I'm a naturalized citizen, and I'm fighting for the rights of 24 million naturalized citizens. And the 14th Amendment says that We have equal protection and due process rights. And so we're in a protected class, just like gender, race, gender identity, et cetera. And we're going to prove in court, and we're going to the circuit court. We're appealing in South Carolina right now as we speak. And we're going to win that case. And once we do, think about it this way, Dan.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I'm going to come back to that issue about the 14th Amendment, et cetera. But Ms. Williamson, let me ask you the same question. This is your second run for the White House. You ran in 2020. You pulled out before the first primary last time. You're in a crowded field. You've got about 6% support right now in the Democratic.
No, when a PI cast it, I was at 13%.
Wow.
Whatever the number, it's a minimal number. What is your practical, realistic path to victory?
The numbers that I have.
Biden beating them worse than Trump beating Nikki Haley. But I think a lot of it is because nobody even knows that they're running. Like I didn't know personally. I didn't know. I don't know how many other, but I don't think, because it's kind of like the largest platforms don't even mention them. Like you don't even hear about them on the CNN and MSNBC. It's kind of like they try to just like sweep them under the rug and give Biden a red carpet to the nomination.
Even when they are totally neck and neck with, let's say, Nikki Haley, hers is called a surge. Mine is just another reason to erase or invisibilize. So no, I'm not enrolled in your idea. Given how little the mainstream media has been willing to cover me, even though I am an FEC registered qualified candidate, given how I've been erased, given how I've been mocked on the presidential stage, given how I've been smeared, I think I'm doing really well, actually. And that continuation of those double digits.
But what's the path to victory?
The victory at this point in American politics is that I'm speaking what needs to be said.
Okay.
Our political system is so riddled with illusion and lies and injustice. Someone simply laying it down and saying what the American people are saying, which is.
I don't know who this is, but she kind of got like a nice voice, right? She got like a divine feminine, kind of like strong voice. I like her voice. So I don't really know too much about her, but I know I like her voice though.
Contrary to what the political elite is saying, that's a victory in and of
itself. Let's talk about the political elite, Congressman. The DNC is telling people in New Hampshire, where you've been spending a lot of time, that it's really meaningless because they're not going to count the delegates anyway. So they're saying this is all for nothing. Even if they're wrong in what they're doing, do they have a point that you're sort of wasting your time in New Hampshire?
Oh, my goodness. None of the three of us are wasting our time. In fact, I'm sitting next to two Americans of great courage and great conviction, and we should celebrate participation right now. The fact that the party we represent, the Democratic Party, would have the audacity to tell New Hampshire voters that their primary is meaningless, that would actually require a letter from the state of New Hampshire back to the Democratic National Committee to cease and desist because it is the unlawful suppression of voters. I mean, come on. That's what we're facing right now. And by the way, Florida, North Carolina, too, it's the same thing. So the answer is no, it's not meaningless. In fact, I think New Hampshire is going to change the entire trajectory of this entire race.
Mr. Uygur, I want to ask you the first question from one of our viewers, 30 seconds. This is Elizabeth from Texas. She says, you're not supporting our president against what will be a pro-autocracy opponent, no matter who the Republican nominee may be. If you are true servant leaders, wouldn't you wish to protect everyday Americans more than your own failed ambitions?
Okay, well, that's a nice question. So here's the deal, guys. Joe Biden's going to lose. I hate to break your heart, but he's at 33%. If you say, no, I saw him at a poll at 36 or 38, it doesn't matter. No incumbent that has been in the 30s in an election year has ever come back to it. Not just for president, for any federal office. It's already over. What we're trying to do is snap you out of it because we're going to lose to Trump. I think democracy is on the line. And these folks are canceling the elections and primaries when their tagline is democracy is on the line. No, there's no way Joe Biden can win. He is 19 points lower than when he won last time. 19 points. Wake up. He's definitely going to lose. You need another candidate, a strong candidate that's going to fight for you instead of sitting in a bunker and napping all day long.
Let's talk some policy, and this may take us in different directions. Ms. Williams.
He yelling right now. He sounds like he's about to lose it. I mean, tone down the temperament maybe a little bit.
So let me start with you. What is the issue where you differ most from President Biden?
President Biden is trying to alleviate the stress of millions and millions of Americans who are living at the effect of an unjust economy. I want to end the injustice. He will do whatever he can to make life a little better for people, but only until the point where to go any further would challenge the profit maximization goals of the donor and billionaire class. We need fundamental economic reform. We need universal health care. We need tuition-free college and tech school. We need guaranteed living wage. We need guaranteed sick pay. We need paid family leave. We need a fundamental economic U-turn in this country. And the president is taking this incremental approach to making things better for people whose lives are suffering. 39% of Americans now say they regularly skip meals in order to pay their rent. The majority of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. The majority of Americans cannot afford a $500 unexpected expenditure, and the president is saying the economy is doing well.
Well, I'm going to get back to another question on the economy. Congressman Phillips, same question to you. What is the issue where you differ most from President Biden?
Well, let's give credit to where it's due. President Biden saved our country, and he's made investments in America. That's what the CHIPS Act was, the infrastructure bill. I salute that. I voted for it. I helped market it. But what he has not done is invest in Americans, what Marianne just said. Housing, healthcare, education, food and fuel so expensive. We have a crisis of costs and chaos. The other area where I differ with him immensely is our southern border. I've been there twice, Dan. It is an unmitigated, embarrassing, unforgivable disaster. And Democrats, as Cenk said earlier, have to wake up to the truth. The more we ignore it, the more we pave a path for Donald Trump to return to the White House. Because you know what? He's actually...
I like this guy. I like what he's saying. I like this guy.
And I think it's time that Democrats do. And I'm afraid that President Biden is at a stage where he has lost the ability to legitimately listen. In fact, where is he? I know he probably couldn't be here today, but to tell the country that he will not debate a single time in a Democratic primary of such consequence, that's perhaps the biggest point of differentiation between him, Cenk, Marianne, and me, is showing up.
Mr. Uygur, same question to you. Where is the area where you differ most from President Biden?
So at this point, it's Israel and Gaza, but I'm sure we're going to come back to that.
No, please feel free to.
So, yeah, I mean,
if that's the issue.
Yeah, he's been monstrous on that. So he's green-lighted the massacres and the war crimes that Israel's committed. He's sending our taxpayer dollars to go kill innocent Palestinians, 23,000 dead already. Enough. How much are they going to kill?
23,000. That's a lot of people. Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know that.
With our money. I don't want my money to go kill.
And this was like 10 days ago. So just imagine.
Palestinian children. So that's point one. Point two, on the policies on the domestic level, it sounds like we have a lot of agreement, but you have to remember that Joe Biden didn't actually do a lot of these things. So the infrastructure, no problem. Great. Credit where credit is due. I agree with Dean, right? So we're not saying it's a black and white thing, but in terms of the policies that he promised, $15 minimum wage, he said it was a bare minimum. He threw it under the bus immediately. Paid family leave, polls at 84%, and he won't fight for it. If you can't get...
And Joe Biden's defense, though, none of the presidents ever went in there and did everything they said they was going to do. So, I mean, I wouldn't expect if any of these three got into the White House by some miracle, that they also would not do half of the things that they running on. So
get something passed that's at 84%, you're not a very good politician. Public option, he didn't even propose it. Why did you? So honestly, I think that he was lying.
Congressman Phillips, do you agree with Mr. Uygur about Israel? He says that the president's policy has been a disaster.
I think, Dan, two things can be true at once. I have great affection for Israel. It is the only majority Jewish nation in the entire world. When the first boats left Europe at the dawn of the Holocaust and came to this country, we turned them away. I'm a Jewish man. I intend to be the first Jewish president in American history who signs documents recognizing a Palestinian state. I care deeply about my Palestinian brothers and sisters like I do my Israeli brothers and sisters. I think two things can be true.
That's deep. That's deep. I like that.
At once. Democrats can support Israel and Democrats can support Palestinians. And I think we should transcend all of this by favoring humanity. And that's who I am. I will fiercely defend Israel and I will fiercely defend the recognition of a Palestinian state and self-determination.
But Ms. Williamson, Mr. Uygur has made...
Because you could do both. A lot of things that I see on the media right now, you would think you would have to choose one side or the other. I'm glad that he just said that because that's how I think about it. I'm like, both things could be true. You know, you could pick the side of humanity on this one. You know what I'm saying?
Very strong comments that are not sort of nuanced the way that Congressman Phillips is saying. Is your position that Mr. Uygur is right, that the president's policies have been a disaster? Or do you generally support what President Biden has been doing with regard to Israel?
I'm with Dean Phillips on this. Our highest allegiance must be to humanity itself. As I appreciated the president's moral clarity on October 7th, but we needed a lot more moral clarity about what has been shown to the Palestinians since then. I do not agree with this war. I don't think it's good for Israel. I don't think it's good for the Palestinians. As evil as the events of October 7th were, I do not believe that this war is justified. We need an immediate ceasefire. I said that even before they started. This was not the thing to do. And I do not think that Netanyahu is good for the Jews. I don't think he's good for Israel. I don't think he's good for us. I don't think that the president of the United States should be in Netanyahu's pocket the way he is. And we need.
I don't really know too much about Israel's politics. But Trump said Netanyahu was hard to work with. That's all I know. Trump said that. I don't know if it's true or not. I just remember Trump was like, I thought that Hamas would be hard to deal with, but really Netanyahu was the one that's hard to deal with. I just remember him saying that. So I don't know.
The release of the hostages, and we need to immediately get about the architecture of a two-state
I want to make sure that you
solution.
agree with that, Congressman Phillips. Do you agree that Netanyahu is in the pocket of President Biden?
No, that Biden is in the pocket.
Sorry, that Biden is in the pocket of Netanyahu, and that there needs to be an immediate ceasefire?
I think what Marianne just said about the immediate release of hostages.
That I agree, but I'm asking you the other question.
But this is really important because it's not getting enough news coverage. There are 8 American citizens being held hostage by Hamas in Gaza right now. 8 Americans. When's the last time 8 Americans have been held without the president of the United States, morning, noon, and night, talking about it, trying to extract them, and using diplomacy to get them out?
What's the solution?
The solution is using every single.
I bet. And I don't want to like promote violence or nothing. I'm gonna just say that SEAL Team 6 would have went in there and got those 8 hostages.
Tool available to us.
What does that mean?
That means it could mean special forces to extract them. It could be using our
U.S. special forces?
Possibly, if there's a plan.
Yes.
But most importantly, is
got
this,
him.
Dan,
They
it
would've
is
got
to
him.
elevate the case. The president's job is to defend this country first and foremost, and we are not defending Americans when they're being held hostage. You asked me the question about being in the pocket. No, I don't think either one of these men is in the pocket of one another. I do not think Benjamin.
They definitely in our pocket. As much money as we sent them, that's in the pocket.
Netanyahu is a proficient leader for Israel, a country I care deeply about. I think he is part of the problem. I hope Israelis, because they are the only democracy in the Middle East, I hope Israelis make the choice to change their government as soon as humanly possible, because the settlement policy and that right-wing government is going to ultimately lead to the destruction of Israel.
Let me get to something that's happened in the news now with regard to the U.S. strikes on the Houthis in Yemen yesterday, Mr. Uygur. Some of your fellow Democrats in Congress have been condemning President Biden for what he views, and many Republicans and many others view, as a response to attacks on U.S. vessels, et cetera. Do you believe that the Democrats who are saying that the president has no right to respond in this way are correct?
So what I'm really concerned about is the widening of the war. So Israel's now bombing in Lebanon. The Houthi rebels are bombing or capturing ships only headed to Israel, going through the Red Sea. And now we're beginning to bomb the Houthi rebels. How big is this war going to get? I am not going to Iran. If there's any Democrat talking about going to Iran, you're nuts. So I'm not going to tolerate any broadening of this war. We shouldn't send taxpayer dollars to it. You know what?
So they
could
should
go around the Red Sea and it raises costs 10%. So.
Anybody else just feel like he kind of biased against? Well, I ain't gonna say that. I'm gonna just say it just seemed like he would be like probably more hesitant to be hard on Iran.
What?
So
we're going to go kill people for
I'm just saying,
10%
young
extra
Turk,
profit
just to be
for
clear.
corporations?
Just to be clear, so they shouldn't be responding. The U.S. should not be responding.
If the Houthi rebels attacked a U.S. ship, then we are allowed to respond.
Okay.
But if they're saying, oh my God, it's slowing down trade, do you know what it's called? It's called Operation Prosperity, Guardian of Prosperity. No, prosperity means you're protecting capital and profits. I'm not starting a war for 10% extra.
I want
profit.
to give you each 15 seconds to respond, Ms. Williamson.
The Houthis are attacking those ships in retaliation for the fact that Israel is bombing Gaza. The way to get that to stop is to stop bombing
So
Gaza.
that sounds like you're justifying what the Houthis are doing. You're basically saying
No, I'm not
you're saying they are doing this in response to Israel.
But that's true.
They are responding to the fact that Israel is bombing Gaza. That's why they're doing it. That is their stated intent.
That's why, like, I don't like reporters that do not. I'm like, it seems like the media does that. They'll be like, "Oh, you defending you defending the rebels." It's like she's not defending the rebels. She's just laying out a series of events. It's like they didn't just start, attacking ships. There were events that led up to that, and the media. It should be the media's job, not the politicians' job. It should be the media's job to tell the whole truth, tell the full story instead of just pieces of the story. Like, nobody's defending rebels attacking any ships. They shouldn't be attacking any ships, whether those ships are Israeli ships, American ships, any ships. They shouldn't be attacking any ships. But nobody's defending that. It's just saying that, okay, this wouldn't have happened if this didn't happen. Like, this happened first, and then in response to that, this happened. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it's not a defense. It's just telling the full story. That journalists used to do that at one time, not so much now.
We should not be supporting the bombing of Gaza at this point.
But this is where I think there's an area of distinction. And Congressman Phillips, you haven't really been entirely clear on this. Do you disagree with Ms. Williamson and Mr. Uygur on this issue, and specifically as it relates to the Houthis and Israel?
I do. And because I'm the ranking member of the Middle East Subcommittee on Foreign Affairs, I know who the Houthis are, and that's an Iranian proxy group.
That's true.
They are a threat to the entire region. The fact is they are attacking maritime ships in the Red Sea. We, the United States, gave them time and time and time again a warning that we would act if they continue doing this, and I support the Biden administration. It became time that we respond. The Houthis are an Iranian proxy designed to cause the very mayhem in the Middle East that is occurring right now. I support the Biden administration.
Everyone's going to stick around. We're still ahead. We got a lot more issues to cover, including the southern border, which was raised. What do they think?
Go into the fold and turn website layouts into an art form with Wix Studio.
Struck Donald Trump. This is not the way we're going to win in 24. We're going to win in 24 by offering the American people a better life, by cutting the cord with an aberrational chapter of American history that has denied most.
We skipped ahead, but I think what she sent, that's a bad. I don't want to paint her in the bad light. That's better. I think what she sent, they saying like, should they take Donald Trump off the ballots? And she's saying like, that's a bad idea because why obstruct Donald Trump? You got to beat him at the ballot. You know what I'm saying? Or at least give him an opportunity to get there. I don't think he should be taken off the ballots either. I think that's cheap. He hasn't been convicted of anything. So I don't think you could take him off. I believe in due process though. I mean, innocent until proven guilty. Obvious to me, he did it. Whatever, I don't care. Whatever they saying he did it. I don't care. But I don't think you could remove him from the ballot without a conviction first, though. That's kind of crazy.
Promises of democracy.
Mr. Uygur saying
You got to be fair across the board, even if you're not a fan of the person, whatever. You got to be fair across the board at all times.
Beat him on the issues. Let us not beat him in court.
Mr. Uygur, same question. Do you think that Donald Trump should be kept off the ballot because of the 14th Amendment?
Yeah, no, I don't. I think the voters should decide whether it's us in primaries being put on the ballots or Donald Trump in a primary or general election being put on a ballot. If we think democracy is on the line, we should actually participate in democracy. We should support democracy. Now, but I want people to understand the 14th Amendment is a complicated issues in both Section 1 as it applies to me, Section 3 as it applies to Donald Trump, and let the courts decide that.
Let's be clear on with regard to you, right? You were born in Turkey.
That's right.
And so there's a question about whether you're even eligible to run for president. The 14th Amendment does talk about no person except a natural-born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of the Constitution shall be eligible to the office of president. Neither shall any person be eligible to that office who shall not have attained to the age of 35 years, et cetera. So what is your argument as to why you should be eligible?
Yes, so that's Article 2, Clause 5. The 14th Amendment amended that, and it says all persons born or naturalized have due process and equal rights. And the way that American jurisprudence has gone so far is that the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause has protected protected classes, that is race, gender, orientation, and national origin. Title 6 of the Civil Rights Act protects discrimination based on national origin.
Do you think it would be discrimination to keep you off the ballot?
100%. It's unconstitutional discrimination. We went to district court in South Carolina. The judge said it was one of the best argued cases. It was a really close call. We're appealing to the circuit court. And Dan, every civil rights case is won by repeatedly saying, we demand equality until the courts give it to you. And that is exactly what's going to happen.
Congressman Phillips, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. had run as a Democrat. He's now an independent. He's polling at a serious 15% or so far. As someone who supports ballot access, do you support his run as an independent?
I think any American who desires to run for public office should have the chance to do so. And I want to answer two questions at once. You just asked about Donald Trump on the ballot. I was trapped.
I think I want to run for public office. I wonder what you feel about that.
In the House chamber on January 6th. I'll say the quiet part out loud. Donald Trump inspired an insurrection. Every one of my colleagues in the Senate and House know it. We tried to prosecute him and we failed. Do I think the Democratic Party should pursue legal channels to beat Donald Trump? No. The same way they shouldn't pursue the same channels to keep us off the ballot. We should let American voters be the judge and jury. And as it relates to RFK Jr., he has every right to run. He's listening to people better, frankly, than I think the president is. And yes, he should be able to access the ballot. He shouldn't have to spend $10 to $15 million to be on the ballot. For someone getting that kind of support, no more than any of us have to spend millions to do the same thing.
Ms. Williamson, I'd like you to listen to this question. This is from Skip from New Jersey, who asks this question.
In an election as critical as this one, when you are inevitably unable to get enough votes to secure the nomination as Democratic candidate for president,
I feel like he, you know what I'm saying? I feel like he's trying to copy. Whatever though, I didn't trademark him. So
will you commit here and now tonight to not running as a third-party candidate, as third-party candidates never win?
Well, first of all, I don't have any problem saying I'm not going to run as a third-party candidate, but I have a problem with the question. First of all, that's just the DNC narrative. She inevitably will lose. If I inevitably lose, it's because they are keeping me off the ballot. It's because they are smearing me. It's because they are mocking me from the presidential podium. It's because they are doing all the shenanigans that they are doing. So then they create this narrative, well, you can't win, so why are you doing this? And you better give us a loyalty test. I think we should ask the president of the United States if Dean is the nominee, or if I'm the nominee, or if Cenk is the nominee, will he support us? This idea of the DNC just creating these concocted narratives to anoint. There's nothing in the U.S. Constitution that gives incumbents an anointment. I am old enough to remember when Eugene McCarthy and Bobby Kennedy Sr. ran against Lyndon Johnson. He was the incumbent. Yep. I remember. No one considered it weird. We just considered it democracy. And no one said to Bobby Kennedy and Eugene McCarthy, now, do you promise? Be good boys and girls. No, this is a democracy. We all have the right to be here. So I have a little bit of a problem.
Fair enough. All right. Now, Congressman Phillips, you had mentioned the border before. The border continues to be flooded with migrants trying to cross in the United States, some doing it through the formal legal process, many others doing it illegally. President Biden now considering stricter asylum restrictions by, among other things, putting a cap on the number of asylum applications. Let me start with you on that. Do you support President Biden on that?
I think we are so misguided in how we're looking at this problem, Dan. The solution to me is very simple. We have a very broken asylum system. Most of the migrants coming to the U.S. are trying to declare asylum. We force them to save $10,000, their whole life savings, make this arduous journey to our border. They pay Mexican cartels all their money. They're processed, they're dumped in the streets of El Paso with no money, no chance to work. And then we have this massive problem, including in New York City. What would I do? I would force the filing of asylum cases in countries of origin. We should build asylum campuses next to our embassies or our consulates to keep people safe, adjudicate the cases there. If they qualify, we bring them to the United States. We mitigate this whole mess, and then they have $10,000 per person to start their new lives in America. That's called problem solving. What we're talking about right now is politics, and that's why we are so—
Mr. Uygur, that's a form of remain in Mexico that Congressman Phillips is talking about. Do you support that? And what do you make of President Biden considering limiting the number of asylum applications?
Yeah, I think it's a terrible idea. I think it's a concession to Donald Trump. It's not to say that there isn't a problem at the border. There is. There are different ways to fix it. So I have a variation of what Dean is saying there. I would send an army of judges to the border because the number one issue is processing the asylum claims quicker. And so, and the other thing you
I don't really like this guy. I don't think he should be running for president.
have to do is you have to stop the flow of the migrants. And how can you do that? By doing a Marshall Plan for Latin America. It worked. We don't have a migrant problem from Germany and Japan and Turkey and Greece because we did a Marshall Plan and their economies grew and they became our strongest allies and our strongest friends. We could do the same thing in Latin America. Right now, Venezuela is a disaster. That is why so much more people are coming to the border because a lot of them are coming from Venezuela, which they didn't used to. If we help those countries, we also help ourselves. It's a win-win. Being more draconian and going in the direction of Donald Trump does not.
I actually respect what he's saying right now, though. That do make sense.
Help Joe Biden stop helping Trump.
So, Ms. Williamson, let me give you another one of our viewer questions. This is David from Minnesota. Let's listen.
Over 73,000 people in the U.S. have died from fentanyl overdoses, but 86% of people smuggling fentanyl in to the U.S. are legal U.S. citizens. My question is, how will you solve the fentanyl crisis?
Well, first of all, and I do commend the president. He recently met with President Xi, and he got an agreement that he would start clamping down on these laboratories in China that manufacture the precursor chemicals. But I actually think that what we ought to do is to decriminalize drugs. I think we should end America's war on drugs. It has not solved the problem in any way. It has exacerbated it. We spent $1 trillion on the war on drugs. When I was in college, we had 300,000 people in prison. We now have 2.3 million, and 46% of all federal prisoners are nonviolent drug offenders. They should be home raising their children. Why do I mention this? Because once we decriminalize drugs, once we end the war on drugs and take that $100 billion that we spend a year, and let's spend a fraction of that every year on a network of recovery options. I don't want to
just don't send none of it to Ukraine. That's all I ask. I like everything she's saying, but don't say we could take that and send it to Ukraine.
Drug czar. I want a recovery czar. We're going to help addicts recover. What's then going to happen? We are going to, by doing that, be taking power away from the drug cartels, taking away their black market. This will give us the bandwidth and the resources to go after the real drug that is the
Congressman Phillips,
enemy, and that is fentanyl.
You talked about sort of legal immigration, right? People who are actually filing claims for asylum, et cetera. David from Texas has a separate question. Says the southern border is clearly a national security problem. Addressing it cannot wait for Congress to fix immigration policies. What do you propose to stop the unmanageable illegal crossings into the United States?
I think he's right. And as executive of the United States of America, your foremost responsibility is to protect America. We spend $1 trillion a year right now overseas with our Pentagon, Dan.
So what's the solution?
The solution is to be an executive and solve the problem at the border.
How?
We need buffer zones on both the Mexican side of the border and the U.S. side. We need to ensure that we have the right barriers, the right technology, and the right trained people. We need to change our asylum law. And I agree with Cenk. We are so misguided in how we invest our foreign aid budget. We do need a Marshall Plan. He's absolutely right, because you know what? What we're seeing right now is nothing compared to what is coming when people start fleeing famine and war and lack of water. We are going to have mass migration waves that we're ill prepared for. And the executive of the United States should be paying attention to the border immediately, and he can, and he's not.
Everyone's going to stick around. You got a lot more to get to, including the economy, and we're going to talk about an issue that may be tough.
Most people have no clue that in 2023, the best way to make money on Amazon is not with physical products.
For some Democrats, coming up.
Mental and emotional health providers. Yes, 21st century strategies to improve lives so that police are not burdened with this nonsense. I'm a white man. I've never had to have the talk with my daughters, the talk about driving at night, hoping my kids come home at night. We have to start being empathetic and understand that slogans like that work against all of us, particularly the communities that need the most protection.
Mr. Uygur, in 2020, you had tweeted, "I'm now supporting defund the police 100%. Then 2 years later, You said, will people who came up with the defund the police slogan admit they were wrong? It was wildly counterproductive framing. Where do you stand today?
Yeah, you're actually missing one more. In the beginning, I hated the slogan. And the tweet that you showed first was my reaction, my frustration with policing in this country, saying, for God's sake, are you guys ever going to change this? But my initial instinct of the slogan being terrible was correct. And I came back to that position because it doesn't work. Because what it leads people to think is that you're going to do no policing. That is not what anyone's in favor of. We want fair policing, not no policing. Of course you need police. Of course you need to protect people. What are progressives for? They're for justice for everyone. That includes the working class, the middle class that suffer crime, and they suffer it more than anyone else does. So the reality is the slogan is terrible, but we never changed the culture of policing in this country. That's the #1 problem. You know what the saying is, better to be judged by 12 than carried out by 6. Every police department says that, and that is actually a terrible slogan. That means shoot first. Who cares about the citizens? Better to protect yourself than to protect the citizens. That is the exact opposite of what cops should do. We want fairness and justice in both directions.
Nah, for real. Like, if you take an oath to protect and serve, you gotta protect and serve. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know it's a dangerous job, but at the same time, you took that oath. You gotta protect and serve. You can't kill somebody and then you know what I mean. And then half the time they don't get consequences for it. That's a problem, you know. And then people be like, "Oh, it's not the cops' fault," but why you think it's always so much outrage? Nobody ever made a song called "F the firefighters" or "F the doctors," not like that. You know what I'm saying?
For the citizens and to protect them.
I see you nodding, Ms. Williamson, but it sounds like what Mr. Uygur is saying is that very often, too often, the police are the bad guys. And that's certainly going to lead to horrible morale among police officers around the country if the President of the United States is talking about how horrible our police are.
Oh, we have to get beyond that sophomore conversation.
And then too, it's the blue wall too. Like, they got that blue wall thing where like people be like, not all cops are bad, but it's like even the good cops, they kind of got that like solidarity. So like if they see a bad cop do bad things, they still won't say anything. It's the culture of the police that has to change.
We need to have a much deeper one. The issue is not how much money you spend. The issue is the training. And as Junk was just saying, the culture. Our police, if you look at how our police are trained compared to, let's say, a country, some of the European countries, where people spend much more time in training, 2 years as opposed to what might be 6 weeks here, and are taught to de-escalate. We can go so quickly for lethal force, and everybody has seen it. We've seen it in videos. So Americans know that something is wrong. We know that there's infiltration of some of our police forces by white supremacist gangs. We've got to stop pretending to the American people what the American people, particularly Black Americans, know. And I know that the majority of our policemen are very, very fine men and women, but that doesn't mean that we're not supposed to address the very, very dark forces that are going on in our police forces around this country. No American mother, as Black mothers do in this country today, have to be afraid that if they ask their son to go to this corner store and get a quart of milk, that he might not come home alive. This is so far beyond how much money we spend. It's about what our police really are doing.
Well, I want to follow up with you on a somewhat related issue.
Yeah.
You have advocated for reparations for slavery. You've pushed for $200 billion to $500 billion to be paid to descendants of slaves.
Yes.
Where are you going to get that money from, #1? And #2, reparations.
First, we could stop sending it to other countries first. Like, that's the first step to getting in. Let me just put that out there.
Is not a popular issue.
Because I hate when they be like, where's this money going to come from? Like, where did the money come from that you just sent to Israel? Where did that money come from?
Issue more broadly in a general election. If you are the Democratic candidate, won't that be a terrible issue for you?
First of all, I'm not running to be popular.
You're not running to win then.
Oh, I am running to win.
Oh.
You know, there's a difference between the American people, the goodness, the decency, and the nobility of the American people, and what the political elite thinks is what's going on out there. I've spoken to many all-white audiences and gone through a little history lesson. Slavery began in 2016. You have almost 250 years of slavery, followed for the most part by another 100 years of institutional suppression of Black people in the American South. 350 years. That's a lot of kicking. And if you've kicked someone that long, you owe it to do more than stop kicking. You owe it to them to say, help me get back up. Now, I also want to point out that once we close the wage gap between blacks and whites in America, the economy in the United States will be $1.5 trillion.
Congressman Phillips, do you support reparations?
I'll tell you, if this country doesn't wake up to the fact that we have an obligation to repair the injustice that was done to African Americans, to the descendants of slaves, we are out of our minds.
And do you support reparations?
And here's what I plan to do. I want to use a UBI program, Universal Basic Income Program, in the lowest income census tracts in America that will benefit descendants of slaves disproportionately, but also white people and Latino people and all kinds of people, because I think we should be preparing for what is coming, the AI revolution. Here's the second proposition. We should also establish what I call American Dream accounts, where the federal government endows every baby born in this country with $1,000 in an account that is invested over time. When you graduate high school, you get it, and that will start closing the racial wealth gap in this country in miraculous ways. If we don't do this, Dan, it is the most existential threat to the country, the disparities between the haves and
Mr. Uygur,
have-nots.
that's not reparations that Ms. Williamson is talking about. Do you support reparations as laid out by Ms. Williamson?
So with reparations, there's two factors. So number one, should we do it? And I was really struck by what Marianne said when she ran last time on a debate stage. She said, a debt is owed. And that's just a fact. 400 years of free service. That's just not fair. So if it happened to anyone, people would say a debt is owed. I did the work and I never got paid for it. Now, having said that, it is very difficult to execute reparations. So how black, how white? What if you're a quarter black? Does that mean you pay reparations because you're 3/4 white, or you get reparations because you're a quarter black? So my point is, there is a way to do this, and it could be a baby fund. It could be lower interest rates on houses to build wealth for African-American families, because right now, the average African-American family starts with 10% of the wealth of white families. We can make a difference.
I know this is an important issue for you. 15 seconds.
Okay. Over 20 years, the disbursement of $1 trillion. If I owe you money, I don't get to tell you how to spend it. A council of black elders from all across culture, politics, arts, religion, and so forth, and two major categories, educational renewal and economic renewal, and the black leaders get to decide.
Right, but I don't think either Mr. Uygur or Congressman Phillips support that.
Well, no, I don't. But
She thorough. I like her. But it's two things that I want to say about reparations, because I hear a lot of kickback where like people say, we didn't own slaves, we shouldn't have to pay the reparations back. And I understand that to a degree, but also the money's not coming out of your pocket for reparations directly. It's coming through money that's being taxed, right? And you know how much money go to, like, nobody wants a war, right? But your tax dollars fund a war. And I don't hear any, like, there's never any outrage towards, like, well, we don't want this war. We don't want this war, as much as it is towards reparations. You mentioned reparations, like, oh, no, I didn't have any say. I don't want to pay reparations. But you also don't want to go fight a war either, right? But you don't have a problem paying for that. So what I'm saying basically is a lot of us pay taxes, and those taxes go towards things that we don't really want it to. So even if you don't want reparations, that's fine. But to like just be so mad about that, but not mad about other things that your tax dollars go to that you might not necessarily want to pay for. And then I forgot the second thing, so let's just get back into it.
But give me, if I could have 15 seconds. White families in America have about 6 times the wealth of black families.
I remember the second thing. And the second thing is, it's not only that we didn't necessarily ask for reparations. They told us they would give us reparations. Like, it's literally in the Constitution that we would get 40 acres and a mule. Now, obviously, it was so long ago that 40 acres and a mule is outdated and unnecessary now, but the equivalent to that should be given. Absolutely. They said they would give it to us. They should give it to us.
Our Constitution says all people are created equal. The only reason this is not equal is because of policies over much time. So the way to do this is close the racial wealth gap. That is something that conservatives and liberals
everyone's
come together on.
Stick around. A lot more to cover with these 3 candidates in the discussion.
The Biden administration's federal staffing mandate could displace up to 300,000 nursing home residents. With a growing caregiver shortage, this impossible mandate could force nursing homes to close. Wrong policy, wrong time.
They said they would give us reparations. You know what I'm saying? Nobody kind of like jumped out there and said, we demand
Of a $500 unexpected
They said that they would
expenditure,
do
39% of Americans report skipping meals in order to pay their rent. When we have the highest poverty rate of any advanced democracy, when we have people putting GoFundMe pages up on the internet to pay for life-saving operations, 1 in 4 Americans living with medical debt, over 1 million Americans rationing their insulin, a third of America's workers living on working for less than $15 an hour, and half of them cannot find a place to live. Do you realize the level of rage that they feel when the president tells them that the economy is doing well? We just don't understand.
Well, speaking of rage, and this is from a viewer question, Congressman Phillips. This is from Christopher from Texas. Congressman Phillips, Ms. Williamson, and Mr. Uyghur are each millionaires. Only one of them, Representative Phillips, has any prior experience as an elected official, only amounting to 3 terms in Congress. How can the candidates relate to the average American or instill confidence in the average voter? And let's focus specifically on the issue of the economy, that you're dealing with 3 wealthy people here. How can you relate?
Well, Christopher, I would say, how can a man who has served his entire professional career since age 27 in Washington, D.C., I think, how can he understand what's going on in this country? If he wasn't so encapsulated in Washington, in the White House, and was out doing what we're doing right now, which is listening to people, he would understand the pain and the heartbreak. People can't afford their lives. Life is unaffordable in America, Dan, and it is the truth. Joe Biden deserves some credit for the macro economy. But as Marianne said, most of that accrues to the top 1%. People are furious that their president is telling them everything is okay. So let me tell you this. I've chaired the board of a health system. I've been a regent at a university. I've led businesses. I've started them. I've served in the nonprofit sector. And now.
And they just, side note, a little bit off topic, but the top 1%, they call us dumb money. I just learned that. I just watched the movie and they call us dumb.
I'm a 3rd-term member of Congress. Believe me, I've been in the real world, unlike most of my colleagues who are running this country right now, who have been encapsulated in a place that is so disconnected from reality.
Mr. Uyghur, your response on this, but in particular, let's focus on this question that Christopher's asking about the fact that all of you are wealthy. How can you relate?
Yeah, I mean, look, I was not born wealthy. My career has been one of great struggle, as being a talk show host is not easy. For 15 years, I was basically starving. I ate Hot Pocket cereal. I used to apportion the amount of cereal I could eat at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So do I know the pain of being poor and the struggles of being?
I believe that he was poor. I do believe him, and he do seem like a guy that can relate to struggle. I don't know why I see that in him, but I do. But I don't think he was really portioning cereal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I think that's a lie, though.
Middle class, absolutely.
I think that's a little hyperbole, and it's not really wrong with that. Just something that I know. I'm like, it probably wasn't that deep for him, but I do see him as a person that can relate to struggle.
And so, look, on the economy, I'm fair and honest. So Joe Biden did actually a really great job on jobs. So, but what our frustration with Joe Biden is twofold. One is on policy, which I'll get to in a second, but he's terrible at messaging. He doesn't like campaigning. He doesn't like attacking Republicans or Donald Trump. He created twice as many jobs as Donald Trump, more than twice as many. You know how much he's down on the issue of jobs? 19 points. He's losing to Donald Trump by 19 points, where he created twice as many jobs. He's down 24 points on the economy. That is why one of my URLs is Biden is going to lose.com. Biden is going to lose.com. So now
it's like Haley with DeSantis Live. That took DeSantis out the game. She did the DeSantisLives.com, and he stopped this campaign. It's like that. That's
yes. Yeah. And I've also got selfishjoebiden.com. Okay, because he's got to get out of the race. But I got to say, on the economy, he's also done terrible because they're right. Wages are too low.
I want to get Ms. Williamson one more quick question from a viewer, and then we're going to get to closing statements. This is from Delmar from Nebraska. who says, how do you intend to get our national debt reined in and lowered? We're crushing our children's future. 30 seconds, please.
I want to answer the one that came before because I think I deserve to. First of all, I'm not a millionaire because I put all this money into this campaign. But more than that, I have had a 40-year career, as a nonprofit activist, as a counselor. I have worked up close and personal with people whose lives were in despair. I founded an organization that has served 16 million meals to people with life-challenging illnesses who cannot leave their homes. What makes me the person most qualified for this position is that I have been up close and personal with people whose lives were in despair. Where the Biden administration sees economic data, I see human suffering.
I want to give you each a chance for a final remark here, to speak directly to the audience, to tell them why you think that you should be the next president of the United States. Congressman Phillips, why don't you start?
Well, let me say the quiet part out loud on two fronts. First, about me. You just referred to me as a wealthy man, and I got lucky. My father died in Vietnam, was a soldier, had to pursue an ROTC scholarship to attend college, and was killed in July of 1969.
I heard this story on the Breakfast Club. That's actually the first time I saw him was on the Breakfast Club, and he got an interesting story. And fun fact about him and what the story he told on Breakfast Club, which you probably won't say here. Jay-Z basically gave them a jump shot by holding up the alcohol brand in the rap video.
My mom was 24 and widowed, and we had to live with my great-grandparents for 3 years, at which point I got lucky. My mom remarried, and I was adopted into a great family, gave me opportunity, and I busted my tail for the last number of decades to get to where I am. But it shouldn't be a stroke of good luck or the zip code in which you're born in America to do well. Here's the other quiet part out loud. Joe Biden, A, should be here, and B, he's going to lose. He should exit this race. He should encourage not just the three of us, but a whole stage full of next generation Democrats ready energetically to get to it. Instill hope and optimism again, like this country deserves. He's going to lose to Donald Trump, and he's going to get crushed by Nikki Haley. We're here doing democracy. We're practicing it. Our party's not supporting it, but we hope that you support us in this mission because it is the most existential threat to our future, and it is the legacy I know we can all.
Cenk Uygur, 60 seconds, your final remarks.
So I'm running because the Democratic Party needs a fighter. We need to go fight Donald Trump. Donald Trump is, in fact, pathetically weak. He has gone bankrupt 6 times. He's a failed businessman. He's a lifelong criminal. For God's sake, Joe Biden, stop taking a nap. Get up and fight. And you don't do that. And that is why I'm worried to death that you are going to lose. You're in the 30s. The Democratic candidate must win.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
By 5 in order to win the Electoral College. He's down by 8. That means he's down 13 overall. He's losing every single swing state. Part of the reason for that is because he doesn't fight. He doesn't fight us. He doesn't fight Trump. He doesn't fight Republicans. He keeps telling you how they're his friends. Well, they're not my friends. I came here to protect Democratic voters, to protect the average American, and to fight against Trump. That's what my website's cenkforamerica.com.
I believe him. That's believable. I believe him.
Everybody knows I'm a fighter, and everybody knows if you're going to go up against Trump, you can't do it meekly. You have to actually fight against them. And Joe Biden right now is losing every swing state. That's why I also have Biden is going to lose.com. He's down 14 points with independents. Democratic Party, turn around right now. We cannot afford to lose to Donald Trump. And apparently Democratic leadership does not mind that, and I do.
Marianne Williamson, your final remarks.
The Democratic Party needs to understand the psychological element of what's going on with Donald Trump. Donald Trump speaks to a part of the.
She got like a real sultry voice. It's kind of like a 1950s, like artsy kind of. I like her vibe. Like it's just something about her. I don't know. Like
the human brain that pulls people down into hatred and division. The only way to override that is to lift people up, to inspire people, to say to people, we can have a new chapter of American history. We can make an economic U-turn. We can cut the cord with an aberrational chapter that sought a $50 trillion massive transfer of wealth into the hands of 1% of Americans. We went from a thriving middle class 50 years ago to a collapsed middle class today. That's what the what the Democratic Party needs to promise. And that is why my career, as someone who has inspired and motivated people during times of crisis, you know, Franklin Roosevelt said that the primary responsibility of the president is not administrative, but rather moral leadership. And the founders of this country agree with me. In order to be president, they said, you have to have been born here, although, as Cenk will tell you, believe me, it's a living document. You have to have lived here for 14 years, and you have to be 35. They did not say you have to be part of a political elite or a congressman or a senator. They were leaving it to every generation. What do you think is the skill set that will be the right skill set to face the challenges of this time? Someone who can say to the American people, we're going to start over, an economic bill of rights, a Department of Peace, ending the drug war. We are going to do the things that give the...
She don't got no respect for the clock though, at all. She don't care about time. She gonna say what she gotta say. I respect that. She do not care about the clock.
American people a chance for
Thank
a better life.
Marianne
That's how
Williams.
we're going to beat Donald Trump.
Thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
look, we are sorry that President Biden did not want to be here to be part of this. We invited President Biden again to join in what we view as an important discussion. I said this at the top. I'll say it again. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to agree with anything or everything the folks here have said. It's just about having them get their say. Dean Phillips, Marianne Williamson, Cenk Uygur, thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you both.
That's what's up. That's what's up. I mean, that was pretty impressive. I think I liked it. You know, I liked what they had to say. I definitely like that debate a lot more than the GOP debate. But I think that, to be completely honest, I think that all three of those Democrats would be a better choice than both Biden and Trump. If not for anything else, their age. I think both Biden and Trump are like way too old to be running anything, let alone a country. Maybe their own personal business that they, you know what I mean, but not a country. I liked a few things that Cenk Uygur had to say. I think he's really passionate about the country. I believe that he loves this country. I believe that he thinks that both Biden, well, I think that he believes that Trump would be bad for the country, and that he does not think that Biden can beat Trump. He, as far as his executive skills, I don't know. I would like to see Uygur and gain a little more experience in politics, like maybe as a mayor or a governor first. I would personally, I mean, I would like to see him as a cabinet member and another for another president, but I don't think that he's ready yet to be the president of the United States. Not to say maybe sometime in the future. I just want to, I would like to see him gain a little bit more experience first. I like Marianne Williamson. I don't think that she's strong enough to be president of the United States. Again, I think she would be a better pick than either Trump or Biden, but I just don't see her as being the president of the United States, especially right now, like in this current climate with wars going on everywhere. Not to say because she's a female or nothing like that. I just feel like her vibe is just more nurturing, protective, and unifying. But I think we're gonna need like more of a warrior leader for this current climate right here. Dean Phillips, I think, would get the job done. I think that he could be the president on every level. I would like to actually see him debate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. There were a few things that he said that I liked. I like the direction that he would like to take the country in. He's a successful businessman. I don't think he filed for bankruptcy 6 times. I think that he could get the economy not only growing, but working for the average American citizen. It seems like he is very passionate about getting the middle class back booming again, and making sure that the disparity closes between, you know, the top 1% and the rest of the country. But I don't know. Drop a comment. I would love to hear what you guys think. All in all, it was an intriguing debate. I think it was far more intriguing than the GOP debate, and that's why I think that it should be a Democratic nominee. And I don't want to see Joe Biden debate them, and I don't want to see Joe Biden debate. I don't want to see Joe Biden lose a nominee. I want to see him step down. I want him to say that he's not running again, because um clearly it's past his time. He had 4 years. He didn't do a terrible job. I wouldn't necessarily say he did the greatest job, but he's past his time. He's past his time. He needs to pass the torch to somebody else. The one person that stood out to me during this debate is Dean Phillips. I think Dean Phillips could actually get the job done as president. So if I had to pick, I would pick Dean Phillips. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that he's a champion of change. I don't think that he would get in there and, clean house and get rid of the corruption and do everything that he said he was going to do. I don't really see him doing all of that. I'm saying that what we have, he's probably the best pick. That's all I'm saying. I don't think that we've seen a nominee yet that could invoke drastic change, the changes that the country needs to see. But I'm hopeful for maybe 4 years from now, maybe we'll see one, or maybe 8 years from now, maybe we'll see one. Who knows? But I'm still hopeful that eventually we will see one. But unfortunately, not in this election. As always, I want you guys to love each other, take care of each other. I don't know if you can tell, but I am extremely tired. I had a very long day. I really wanted to watch these debates and share with you guys, and maybe get some other people's opinions on what they saw. Love each other, take care of each other, love yourself first, let that love pour out into the world around you, and be great. Be great today, be great tomorrow, be great the day after that. I love you guys. I do.